Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of the Underground Kings podcast. Today I am joined by Zach Burkett, founder of Dr. Fitness Healing Center. Zach, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So this episode is going to be quite interesting. We were just talking off the air a little bit about the majority of our podcast guests I'm already quite familiar with, or I know on a personal level. This is actually our first time meeting. I've heard a lot about you, but I'm really interested to see where this is going to go, and figure we can get off the cuff here a little bit.
Well, we do have a lot in common, even though this is kind of a new thing for both of us. We have a mutual friend, Joe, and once I know you're a friend of Joe's, for me, that means a lot because he's been like a friend and a brother to me. He's been very good to me, and I respect his, let's just say, his entrepreneurialism, his faith, the way his family values. So, like, right when I heard that, and it kind of made sense. I'm like, okay, I got you. So, we can talk about one thing that I learned just from Joe, and then I'll kind of get into what I do, is that he and I just had a little private huddle one time, and we were talking about faith. And he said one time he prayed, and he just said, God, all I really want to do is just be a good guy and take care of my family. And his family values are there, and it really inspired me because I can see how clearly God has answered that prayer and has blessed him. So I want to be like Joe. So here I am, but I have different gifts and a different message for the world. And mine is through healthcare. The Dr. Fitness Healing Center has a mission statement, which is strengthening people from the inside out. And I like the word people because, I saw the movie Patch Adams once, and Patch said something. He said, when you treat a disease, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, but when you treat a person, I promise that you win every time. So, as a chiropractor, that's what I'm licensed doctor of chiropractic. You could look at like, okay, I treat 206 bones in the skeleton and 650 muscles, but when you realize that people are more than just an array of muscles and bones, the musculoskeletal system, that they are a human being, a person that has feelings and family and fears, and you start to like take all of that into consideration instead of just being mechanistic with the spinal joints, and you slow down and you start to like just kind of value that. If you want to add value to people, you value people. And it's nice to sit down and talk, and it's really an honor to sit down and talk to you and see what you're doing in life and how you're thriving and crushing it at a very young age. And, there's a 30-year difference between us. But I feel like I have a message that would help you maybe, and also your viewing and listening audience as well, about healing and how that relates to faith, food, and fitness, which are the core values at the Dr. Fitness Healing Center. So I know that's a mouthful, but I'm gonna let you kind of maybe redirect me so that I'm on task. So.
Well, no, we appreciate you coming on, and I think there's going to be a lot of great conversation points. I'm very passionate about health and fitness and wellness, so I'm sure we can delve down that avenue a little bit. But first and foremost, so how long have you been in business, did you say?
So I graduated chiropractic school in 95, so that's 27 years as a doctor, which is like half of my life. So I'm 54 years old, so to me it's like a blink of an eye, but yet here I am still doing it, and I got a lot more to give, I believe, for this community.
Okay, so that's quite some time under your belt.
It is.
Let's delve into kind of what's led you up to this point, because I'm sure there's a lot of trials and tribulations and experiences that you've had to lead you to where you are today. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your backstory.
So ever since I was a little boy, my dad was always saying, you're going to be a doctor. Okay, so I don't think he was necessarily thinking of to be a chiropractor. So, but he wanted me to be a medical doctor. So here we are as a chiropractor, but it was kind of like Dad's influence. Even when I was little, he bought me a little toy doctor set, the bag, the stethoscope, and I had, like a little plastic, like, I don't know, like injector needle or something. And my dad was always good with like treating things if I was like sick. And my mother was like on a different side of the equation. My mom was like completely like off the chains with like faith and praying to God and Jesus. And my dad was kind of like, study, be an academic. So I have really cool, diverse influence from both of my parents, who I respect both of them greatly, and I'm grateful for their individual and also collective investments in me. My dad didn't make it as a doctor, wanted to, and he was in love with my mom, and he couldn't hack it at college, so he got out of college and just went into the workforce. And he's a great salesman, so. But he made sure that I got to go to private Catholic high school, and all boys Central Catholic down in the city of Pittsburgh. And my dad gambled, and like he literally gambled and won a bet and was able to pay my tuitions. And like you might look at that like as a negative thing, but my dad, he rolled the dice. He would have had to pay the bookie if he had lost, but he sent me to school, and he was very proud of me. Problem is, when you talk about the adversity that comes, as good as I was academically, we had some issues in our family where my parents were just, they were fighting. And we'd have to go live with mom at grandma sometimes, and dad was doing what he was doing and running around. And then he would apologize, and we'd move back in with him. And finally, my parents divorced. And being in a highly academic situation when you're in your adolescence is difficult to focus when you're dealing with a lot of disappointment. And then as a dude, you cover it up sometimes with anger. At least that was my default.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't really want to face it or deal with it. So we had to take me back out of the private Catholic school back to the local public school because I wasn't making the cut, making the grades. And that was embarrassing for my dad because he invested a lot in me, but I don't think he understood that what I was going through psychologically. And it probably disappointed him, unfortunately. And I was disappointed because I couldn't hack it, but I just couldn't focus. And so played some football in high school. Football seemed to be a good outlet for me. It seemed like an appropriate place to be able to get rid of some stress without getting incarcerated. Let's just put it that way. But it was legalized brutality, and for me that made a whole lot of sense. And I'm grateful to all my players and my high school coach for all of that. And went on to play a little Division III at Dickinson College right out of high school. That didn't last long. Wasn't ready emotionally. Got sent home. Went to a Catholic college next semester, St. Vincent's, great college. Got in trouble there. Didn't make it. Got sent home. Went into the Navy. My dad said, son, you better get into the military to get your attitude straightened out. Didn't make it there either. Assistant Master at Arms, academic winner of my company, fitness winner of my company out of 80 guys. Won the 2-mile run, second in push-ups, but my cumulative score, I won that too. So I've got all this aptitude and potential, academically, leadership, assistant Master at Arms, physical, fitness. But in my heart, company commander could be yelling at me and I would be like, yes, company commander. But inside my heart, I was like, F you. Because I learned how to play the game. I learned how to say yes when I was really saying F you. And I had this divided, rebellious heart. And God knew about that, and I didn't know how to fix it. But I know, and I can say this from personal experience, I can't really speak for anyone else, but when the number one authority that you look up to lets you down, it's hard to buy in. And I think I made the mistake, at least at that age, of associating my earthly father with my heavenly father. Like if my dad let me down, maybe God's the same. And so I didn't trust God, nor did I want to forgive my dad. I had some real bad resentment issues, some bitter roots in my heart. And God knew that. I feel like I'm tearing up, not because I'm still sad. It's just that I'm grateful that I don't live where I used to live. I would just say at this point in my life, I'm whole and healed. And I'm just really reflecting right now and grateful for what God has done for me. And so here's how it went down. So I get home from the Navy, sent home, entry-level separation. They did a background check, found out I had a few misdemeanors. I told the recruiter everything I did, but he didn't report it. So they sent me home. It was my fault. My dad was upset. He's like, nah, we'll pursue this. I said, no, Dad, I'm going back to college. And I felt like I learned my lesson while I was in the Navy, because I realized, man, if I ever get back to college, if I ever get another chance, boy, I won't squander it. I'm going to give my very best, because I realized I was in formation and I was out of position because I was a gifted student. But here I am standing in formation and I'm feeling like I'm incarcerated. So when I got home from the Navy, I told my mom, I said, Mom, it seems like everything I do, I just fall on my face. And my mom said, Zachary, I've been begging you, please come back to church, please. She goes, I've tried to take you to counseling. You won't go. I said, all right, I'll go. Christmas Day, right? So we're at Pittsburgh East Full Gospel Church, and there's a pastor. His name's Pastor Lee Kreitcher. And he said exactly verbatim what I said to my mom before we went to church. And he said, if everything you do, you fall on your face at the altar call at the end of the Christmas service. That's exactly what I said to my mom. Everything I do, I fall on my face. I was like, all right, you're talking to me? This is personal. This isn't just categorical stuff. And my mother stood up with me, and she gave me the Italian mother hip nudge, like get up front and go make your peace with God. So I went up front, and hands are up, and I'm just crying. Go back right into that feeling of what it was like to say, all right, let's bury this grudge, because I've been pissed off with God. Something like about 1 million pounds dropped off my shoulders in that moment. And I felt peace that I hadn't experienced. And that's the best moment of my life, that moment. And so as a doctor now, to understand the value of that defining moment when a rebellious young man doesn't find God. See, God was never lost. I was lost. When God gave me yet 1,000 opportunities to return back home like the prodigal son, like, just come home, man. Let's make peace. Let me take care of you. Let me start blessing you. Quit living in the margins and trying to be a rebel and trying to make a name for yourself, and you're just making a mess of your life. Come home and let's restore this relationship and let's do something with your life. So all of those experiences, all those setbacks were really, I think, powerful for me, because here I got to play a little college football. I got to experience a really good Catholic college. I got to experience basic training and some military, but that really wasn't where I was to go. But all of those experiences are so important to me and valuable, even in the failures, even the falling forward, if you will. If the next thing that you find isn't the thing, it will be the thing that leads to the thing. And so for that, I'm grateful, and for all the pain that I experienced in my own ineptitude and failures. I'm thankful that my dad said go in the military, because there was a physical discipline, there was some mental discipline and toughness that was gained in that. And I would say for business as an entrepreneur, you've got to have those attributes, because it's easy to fold when adversity hits. So all of those are a wealth of resources for me to this day. After that, man, it was crazy, because my mom said, okay, I said, what do I do now? She said, pray, ask God for direction. What did he make you for? What do you, and I did. And into this little pea brain jumps this vision that I'll be a doctor of chiropractic. And there was a dude in our town that I was like, if he could be a doctor, I think I could be a doctor. And so I went for it. The application, the doors opened up, student loans, the aid showed up. And next thing you know, I'm a freshman and postgraduate, This is now after I went back to college and did my pre-med at Penn State, local branch campus. President of my class, Phi Theta Kappa. I mean, once I returned to my faith, man, God was blessing me, and I started to thrive again. So I'm in chiropractic school, and I'm doing some bodybuilding now. Football's over, and I won Mr. Pittsburgh, middleweight, won Mr. Atlanta, middleweight. So that I had a coach. I got down to Myrtle Beach. I did some boxing. I had a boxing coach. I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and I'm kind of bored and fatigued with chiropractic, because it's kind of like, get them in, get them out, crack. Here's your arthritic x-rays. I'm like, is this it? And I hated everything that I prayed about. What do you do when you get into practice and you spend all this money on student loans and all this time investing in your academic acumen, and all of a sudden you don't even want to do it? Here's what happens. You quit your job and you go home and you get depressed and you start drinking and playing PlayStation. That's what happens. And then you eat pizza and you get fat. And then your mother calls you. This is true. And she says, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't want to be a chiropractor. She said, Zachary, I didn't ask you what you don't want to do. I want you to I'm asking you, what do you want? And I said, Mom, I want to help people. I want to encourage them. I don't want to give them an X-ray scare plan. I want to teach them exercise, nutrition, faith. I want to basically give them a great value of synergy of services. And I don't want to work all the time. I want to work about half the day. I moved to the South. I want to enjoy the beach. She said, let's pray. So that's what I do. I have a wellness practice where I try to share with people what I learned through the adversity of running from God and how to return to God and how to allow that reunion through faith manifest in your fitness, in your health, and in your food. And that's kind of a weird thing. How do you monetize that, right? Like, how do you pay the bills when the typical chiropractic model is get them in, get them out? Practice management consultant, because it's time, it's money, and you've got to, how do you really build a rapport and minister to people and counsel people and coach people and help them get out of inflammation and harm's way and arthritides and neurodegenerative disease that's coming from super toxins in the diet? If you slow down, how are you going to make rent? How are you going to take care of Mr. Parisi? Well, I don't know how God did it, but he did it. And I'm right in the sweet spot of what I do with my coaching. And I can tell you this, my student loans have ballooned up to about $250,000, and I paid them off in 1 year.
Good for you.
$1,300 a month, right? But that didn't cover that, because that's $250,000. I had an Episcopal priest who was also an attorney renegotiate my student loans. I paid $1,300 a month for a year. And at the end of the year, the student loan company came back and said, we have more outstanding debt. We can't honor the forgiveness program. So the promise was, at the end of 1 year, we'll give you a payment that's much more affordable. Well, they reneged on the deal. So I went back to my friend, the Episcopal priest. I don't know what happened, but somebody paid off my student loans for me. It's gone. My credit is restored, my tax returns come, and there's no debt. There's no spot on my credit. So God handled that. One of the things that I did along the way is I went to a conference down in Hilton Head. One of my pastors sent me, and it was called From Success to Significance. And this is just, if this sounds surreal, it is to me too. Like, I literally have to pinch myself to go, how did this happen? But the question in this conference was, would you be willing to turn your business over to God? And instead of being just successful, would you want a life of significance, a legacy where you make a kingdom impact, not just a living or not just a bunch of money? And I was like, yeah, I'm interested in that. I want to make an impact. I want to become a disciple maker. I want to be like one of the apostles. I want to not just help people with their temporal needs, with their physical health, but I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to make peace with God like I did. So I'm going to take that risk. That's a big leap, because if you're going to take your business to go from some business model to try to make it like family, and then even then some, because not every family member wants to hear about God. How are you going to do that and somehow monetize it, but yet still let it be such a thing that you're not charging for the faith, you're charging for the physical services? How can you coach people back to wholeness and wellness and pull that off? Well, through faith, food, and fitness. When people come to a doctor, they're hurting. And when people are hurting, they're at the most open season, I would say, position of their coachability. It's not really weddings where people are wanting to hear the gospel. It's usually funerals, because that's when there's grieving and hurting. And it's this perfect kind of thing with the cross. It's, when people are in their lowest point, but when you're kind to them at that lowest point, that's the intersection of the cross. See, it's the kindness of the Lord that leads to repentance. And so when somebody's in their lowest point physically, they're hurting, and usually with healthcare, it's a perfect storm. Usually a physical injury, there's usually chemical issues with the diet, with toxins, and then there's mental stress or emotional stress. And what if a doctor could be like, have enough time to sit down in the case history and not just be just a facts man, but like, how are you? What happened? When did you get sick? Is it just a physical thing, or are you dealing with some emotional stress? Are you struggling with your diet? Do you have silver fillings in your mouth? Do you have mold in your house? And start to look at the neurotoxins and all the stressors that are across the board, but not just physically, like to actually give a crap and treat a person rather than to treat just a spine. That's what I get to do, and I love it. And somebody asked me the other day, he goes, I drove by your office and you're not always there, And I said, well, I have a great balance of affluence and influence. So it's really important to have a good reputation. Now, as you're going to find in your 20s, there are going to be temptations that come your way. Good-looking dude, you're muscular, you're in the weight room. Well, I'm 30 years older than you, but I understand that, even to this day. And in order to maintain the credibility in the community, to be, let's just say, a leader, but also a spiritual leader, you've got to have a name that's above reproach. And that's easier said than done. So to be successful in business, especially when God's setting you apart to use you as a minister, a vocational, spiritual, and physical healer, you have to really decide what you want to do. And when you know what you're going to do and you want to help people, by default, you also realize what you cannot do. Otherwise, you lose street cred, right? Reputation. So with that being said, I really don't need to go that far into that, but there's inherent peril when you stick your neck out to try to make a significant difference. And my goal isn't really to see hundreds of thousands of patients, but my goal is to make a big difference with the ones that God sends me, to coach, to encourage, to give a great adjustment. I have people that come from motor vehicle accidents. I have people that are dealing with autoimmune disease because they don't even realize it was their diet all along. So I prayed about it recently, and I got a new concept called Burger Pizza, Rapid Fat Loss Protocol. And it is a 1-month fast where people are consistently losing from 22 to 25 pounds in 1 month. And it's a fast, and it comes out of the Bible. It's Matthew, I think it's 6 verses 16 through 18, where Jesus said, when you fast, don't be like the hypocrites, but keep it between you and God. Put hair gel in your hair, makeup on your face, if you're a lady. And God, who sees what you do in secret, will reward you. And I used to think that that was like not for me because I was a bodybuilder, and bodybuilders, we eat like small meals every 3 hours, and at your age, that's what I was doing, and that's what worked for me until I hit 40, Colden. And when I hit 40, I started to get like this fatigue, and I started to get a skin rash, and I started like get chronic sinus infections. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And my wife giggled. She says, Zachary, you're like Dr. Fitness, but you're like got the highest medical bills in the house. What's going on? I said, I don't know. Went to my medical doctor. He said, I have allergies. I was like, what do I do to go get a skin patch test, at an allergist? And then, they'll do like some kind of elimination scheme to try to see what is the specific allergen. But I didn't. I just quit. Took my ball and went home. Thought about it. Prayed about it. And I got an idea. And that idea that came from that adversity and that illness at 40 years old is now really where I'm moving into at this chapter of my practice, which is a healing protocol that comes from fasting. It's the combination of chiropractic, fasting, and diet variation, a ketovore diet, a water fast. And so I have these strategic protocols that I do to teach people to get them out of harm's way, out of inflammation, whether it's sinus infection or whether it's Hashimoto's thyroiditis or whether it's a neurodegenerative disease like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. But I had to go through some coaching. And so that's really where I'm landing these days. And it's very gratifying to see people start to drop weight again. The problem we're having now is that there's 4 symptoms that are facing the standard American. In the standard American diet, we have a barrage of bad fats. Bad fats, a lot of people don't know the difference between bad fats because fat gets a bad name, but there are actually good fats, healthy fats, like coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. But the restaurant fats, the compressed hydrogenated oils, are very, very carcinogenic and toxic to our cell membrane. People don't know that. So every time we eat wings or something fried or fries, we're actually inflaming our cell membranes at the brain cell level, very upstream, not down in the gut, but the upstream. So when we have cellular inflammation at the brain cell level, we get 4 symptoms. Those are anxiety and insomnia, brain fog, chronic joint pain, and weight loss resistance. So I had to now, in that illness, start to pray about it. I happened upon a valedictorian from chiropractic school who was a friend. He was married to a really hot girl back home in Pittsburgh. So I knew her, and then I found out about him. Well, he has like dyslexia, but he's like also a genius with a photographic memory. He got sick. I started finding him on social media. He lost his practice, completely had to lose his practice from silver fillings. Back in the 80s, there were mercury fillings that dentists used to put in the mouths of people. They no longer do it. They say that, I think it's CYA, but mercury fillings are super toxins. They would say, oh, they're mercury when it's outside your mouth is toxic, but when it's in your mouth, it's no longer toxic. Oh, okay. So it's toxic. It's a super toxin, and it's one of the biggest contributors to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases, where people, next thing you know, they're in an assisted living because they can't remember their kids anymore. It's coming from that. So I got the coaching. I had those removed, but I went to a regular dentist to get them removed. I did not go to a board-certified IAOMG board-certified specialist. It'd be like having asbestos removed, but not doing it correctly, and next thing you know, you got problems. It's toxic, right? Yeah. So is silver fillings. I dealt with 2 years of insomnia and anxiety. My symptoms got worse. Struggling with my weight, struggling like, what am I going to do? We had a wall in our house in a Carolina room that got black mold, needed remediated. So I had water leak in my office floor coming up through the floors. So I had all kind of toxins going on around me, but I had to deal with it. So I hired a coach, got a health coach, and I started going through and navigating through what was coming against me. And here's the simple premise that we believe in our coaching. If you remove the interference, the body will heal itself. What's the interference? What's the toxin? And if you can identify that and find a safe, healthy protocol to get that out of the body, your body will start to heal. It has innate intelligence. It wants to heal. It wants to live and not die. My job is to kind of be like a Sherpa, to ask the right questions and to lead people out of harm's way. And some people don't realize it, but they're so subacutely addicted to the sugar and the carbohydrates in their diet, they're actually becoming their own worst enemy. So someone to come in and lovingly, but also decisively say, hey, this is the issue. Now we need an approach to go after this. And when you make that U-turn, your body starts to heal. Then the joint pain clears up, the fatigue clears up, the insomnia, the anxiety, and the weight gain. And so weight gain is really just, it's the postmodern symptom of something not being right in the body. And that's why I felt like it was worth me staking my whole practice around dealing with people that are struggling with their weight. Because it's really, it makes you think about it, you don't see any obese 90-year-olds. Think about it. Why? Because they're dead. Because obesity is the setup for all of the diseases that we deal with in America, from heart disease to stroke to diabetes, right? All of those things are coming from obesity. I heard a recent stat, like even in the African-American church, 69% of people are overweight and obese. They have to have a nurse on staff.
Scariest stats to me as of right now, as of current, are the stats we're seeing in kids.
Right.
Kids in, 3rd through 12th grade we're talking about obesity at that age.
Well, I appreciate you understanding that, and further, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this issue, and that's why Joe made this connection, I was really excited to come and have a platform and an opportunity to talk about what's really going on. That these issues that we're facing in our diet for our kids, for the next generation, this is going to be so out of control if we don't have a voice and create a solution and create some information where people can know better. Because if we can know better, we can do better.
You're absolutely right.
But scripturally, people perish for lack of knowledge. And when people don't have a goal. They cast off restraint. Like, I don't even know a game plan that works, so what's the use? And I think people are really trying. I don't think that they don't care, but they just don't have the right information to fight their way back out of the corner. That's where I come in, because I got the burger pizza rapid fat loss protocol. And so people could diet for a whole year, but I can get a person to lose 25 pounds in 1 month, which shows that if you do the right things and turn from the wrong things, that your body will start to heal, and it will let go of the inflammation, which is causing the weight gain, and will get rid of the insomnia, the anxiety, the fatigue, the brain fog, all those things. You want to make more money? Get rid of brain fog. You want to get some really good ideas? So that's why I have to teach people protocols, how to fast, how to exercise, and how to get adjusted. So fasting will release a healing. Chiropractic releases it when you adjust the spine. It's amazing art, science, and philosophy, but it only leaves people so far. Fasting will harness that energy that got released during the chiropractic adjustment. So in my protocol, people get adjusted, they get smart training, they get a fasting protocol with weight loss in mind, but healing. This gets people out of harm's way from autoimmune, right? Fibromyalgia, all of these things that are debilitating in terms of the psychosomatic connection, like psychological, like discouragement and depression manifests as tightness and lumps and trigger points all through the body. And when somebody's mind is down, now it starts to manifest physically. It's a two-way street. Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy body. So when you start to treat the whole person, that person starts to heal. That's what excites me.
Absolutely agree with you. You bring up a lot of great points that I really want to lean into. We'll start with kind of the fasting approach. Something that's always very much intrigued me and actually sparked my interest in fasting is kind of the talk around intermittent fasting. You know, everybody, you know, the problem with bringing up words like, you bring words like fasting up, or you bring, you know, diet, all of these keywords are oftentimes associated with fads. And, but the thing is when you're talking about intermittent fasting or fasting in general, these are proven to not be fads. These are things that humans were doing. If you follow the roadmap back, hundreds of years ago,
yes,
tribes of human beings, if you think that they were getting up every morning and having their morning routine and their breakfast at a certain time and their lunch at a certain time and their dinner at a certain time, and they were tracking their macros and micronutrients, you'd be mad, you'd just be insane to think that. They were hunters and gatherers. They were going out, they were going on a hunt. Their calorie expenditure was extremely high during these hunts. They're going potentially days on end in some cases before they're, witnessing or kind of being successful on a hunt. Mm-hmm. And then they're bringing it all back, processing it. And then there may be days without food even, or they're just eating, nuts and berries or things that they brought with them or some dried meats. And then they have this fresh kill and they're feasting,
yes,
which is literally fasting.
Yes. Fasting and feasting intervals.
Correct.
Rather than 3 squares. The average American now, we don't realize it, but this is the research. You know how many times we're actually not eating meals, but like eating or spiking insulin a day? 19 to 21 times.
That's madness.
So, and because we're snackers and we're grazing, but every time you eat, it actually partners with releasing insulin. And every time you release insulin, you know what that does? Ages you. It's fat storing and it's inflammatory and it's aging. So the key would not be to eat less. The key would be to eat less often. And so I teach that. And so you can still have the decadence and the enjoyment of your feasting intervals. It's just having a coach to teach you time and place. What would be the most advantageous time for me to enjoy my feast while I can still get my anti-aging healing effects? Like when we first got in here and I told you I was 54, you said, I don't think you look like 54. You said something like,
you don't look a day over 40.
A day over 40. So, and I appreciate that. And I think that that's available to other people too. I realized that when I listen to my coaches, they're like, if you're overeating, it's as toxic on the body as smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And so I Googled that. I wanted to double check that. Like, what is the average mortality rate of a bodybuilder? 49 years old. I'm 54, so I used to do bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding. But then when I hit 40, I started going to my medical doctor because we thought the new thing was what? What are men doing now? They're going to get hormone replacement therapy. So I'm all right, I'm going to get some energy. I'm going to get a boost from these, from testosterone. Maybe I'm getting older. Maybe I'm on the decline. Maybe I'm in the twilight of my life. And maybe it's the root cause of the problem is that my hormones are diminished. So I wanted to investigate that, even though it was contrary to my, let's just say, my credo as a natural bodybuilder, as a doctor of chiropractic, drug-free. Thomas Edison said the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet and nutrition, and in the cause of disease. And so I got a little bit off task because I was suffering with fatigue, sinus infections. I was getting a little heavy. So the doctors are like, yeah, we give you the testosterone, you'll get leaner and you'll feel better. Initially, I had a little more energy, but I didn't get leaner. You know what I got? Swollen. I just swole, your neck, your face, and you can see, you look around in America now, and most of the guys that you see that are in their middle years, 30, 40, and their doctor puts them on the T, that's testosterone, right? And, they look all big and swole, like as if they really were, earning it naturally. That's not the case. It's a false body. And it's also creating high blood pressure. And when you have high blood pressure, guess what you get next? Well, you got to get high blood pressure meds. So now there's the domino effect and collateral damage. Now you need high blood pressure meds, right? So now what happens? You can't get an erection, right? So you got problems there. So now you got all, like you're trying to be a man, and I'm like, I'm tired, and like now I'm having romantic and intimacy problems with my wife, or with what, maybe my Kumar on the side, or whatever, how many, I don't know, or my harem, I don't know, whatever we're doing, but there's got to be a better way. What is the root cause? Is it really a deficiency, or is it possible that there's this circle which represents a brain cell, and there are little pockets in the brain cell called receptor sites, kind of like craters on the moon. And in those craters, there are supposed to be docking sites for our hormones, like human growth hormone, which is your anti-aging, your healing hormone, helps you stay lean. Testosterone, that's your maleness. What about leptin, which is your satiety hormone, meaning I can stop eating, I'm full now. Or thyroid hormone, like T4, the converted active form of thyroid hormone, which is responsible for metabolism. What if I do have the right amount of hormones, but all those little craters are now embedded with toxins from genetically modified organisms, or from pesticides, or from mold, or from super toxins like heavy metal poisoning? And nobody ever told me about that. So now my MD says, yeah, forget all that. We don't know anything about that, but let's just inject you with more exogenous hormones. That'll fix it. So now we're throwing more fake hormone at our body. Our mortality rate we're going to have issues because we're masking the root problem by treating symptoms. We're symptom chasing. And so I think it's a very, very important thing for people who want to really live their best life, who want to really make a difference in this world, that they would authentically feel good and go after true health, and they would find a way. Well, if the root cause is inflammation and toxins embedded in these little craters, these receptor sites, how do I get that out of there? Well, Matthew chapter 6, fasting. Fasting has been researched, and there's a Nobel Prize given to a medical doctor named Yoshinori Ohsumi in the year of 2016. You can look it up, Google it up. He won a Nobel Prize for his research on a cell called the autophage. An autophage would maybe be best represented by the icon Miss Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man, if you ever played the game, you're kind of young, but she's hanging around, right? Yep. She's timeless. She's a household figure. She gobbles up these little dots as she goes through the maze, right? In the body, those little dots are represented by toxins, or weak cells, or cancer cells, or precancer cells, or autoimmune disease cells, or immunosenescent cells, meaning like old dead skin that we need to slough off in the shower with a loofah, like a scrubby, with like good body wash, body soap. Inside the body, that needs to be done and dealt with too. And the autophage is what does that. That only happens when you're in a fasted state, 13 hours and beyond. So imagine this. Imagine you go to bed and you shut down your eating by 7 p.m. 13 hours later, that's 8 a.m., Miss Pac-Man shows up, and she's like free maid service, and she starts cleaning house for free by just being obedient to the science, which is also the faith in Matthew 6. See, science and faith, they massage one another. They're not in a disagreement. So God is the creator of science, but it's up to us to believe it or not. And it's one thing to have head knowledge. It's another thing to have wisdom and apply that knowledge. Faith is action. Faith is a verb. So when you get a coach, you got to say, okay, I used to think bodybuilding was right. It worked when I was in my 20s. Man, I was winning contests, Mr. Yada, 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 middleweight champ, And now I'm 40 and I don't feel good anymore. Well, I can tell you now I'm 54 and I feel great. And God has been good to me. So not only did he allow me to go through the problem, not to get in it, but he led me out of it. And that's what leaders do is they go through, they blaze the trail. They go through the problem first, but they don't get stuck on stupid. You got to hold on to it. You got to study. You got to start looking at podcasts. You got to start reading. You got to go to seminars. And you got to say, man, I ain't living like this. If this is it, just take me on home to heaven because this sucks. But I want to get well and I want to live my life. And when you get so excited about being able to live your life again, I would call that wholeness. Wholeness means I'm not just healed where I take my little gig and go off and do me. Now I want to exponentially market that, and I want people to hear that message so they can experience that same freedom, healing, and benevolence, and then be able to take their gifts and expand them so that the world could be a better place. Because if we bring our diversity together at the marketplace, everybody wins, right? This is my gift. This is what I do. So,
well, I think the world is going to be grateful for your gift and for others that are following suit. I do see, generally, I do see a positive movement. The problem is, that small beam of light is oftentimes, so hard to see in the bleakness of the world. And it's just about, like you say with your clients, a lot of these, you may not affect the lives of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. We got a visitor. Our second guest on the podcast.
This is Honey.
But you may not affect that many people, but if you deeply affect and have a true impact on the lives of 10 people throughout the course of your life, to the extent that those 10 individuals take the same principles, the same values, and they spread it to 10 people each.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a compounding movement.
Well, and then thanks to you for inviting me over. So what I'm sensing now, what's happening is, you get the message, and then, God knows that, and you've been faithful with it. Now things are starting to open up. Like I'm here today. I started to open up some live coaching. I'll do like some, maybe like Google Duo. And I'll do coaching, like a video conference call, and I'm coaching people remotely now, which has given me the opportunity to just even coach from home. And in a 20-minute conversation, I can teach people what they need to do. And without even adjusting them, without even training them in my office, just from a 20-minute coaching call, people are dropping 22 to 25 pounds. So that's amazing, just for the sake of efficiency for everybody. And at the price is more than fair. We've been doing it for about $150 for the 20-minute call, but people are getting a value from that, and then they're recommending me. I have a friend who's got a TV station, Dr. Joseph Dutton. He's a Pentecostal prophetic pastor, and I would consider a mentor, and his wife as well, Miss Lynette. They've had me on Dominion TV. I just filmed 5 episodes with them, and they believe that there should be a wellness coach in the stratosphere of people of faith, that there should be a big kingdom influence. So it's been a big honor for me to be welcomed aboard with their TV station. So that's getting ready to launch October 1st. Super excited about
Very
that.
Cool.
So I think there are ways to, let's just say, leverage our influence without having to have the traditional high volume practice, crack and see you. So I'm really excited about what you guys are doing with your brilliance to make that happen.
I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. is there any details or information about your business or how people maybe can get in contact with you, can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of like your family doctor kind of brother. I'll do house calls. I got a patient, he's like 80, and I go to his house like, you know, he's very wealthy. He's like, man, just what does it take for you to come down to Pawleys Island? I'll do that. I'll come to your house. I'll bring a portable table. You can find me on the web at drfitnessmb.com. You could call me directly at 843-455-3235 on my mobile phone. You could come by the office, the Dr. Fitness Healing Center. It's right on the bypass in Myrtle Beach, south of the Market Commons. But I'm accessible, I'm approachable, and I am absolutely available. And I'm excited to meet new people, to help new people.
Fantastic.
So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really think we're gonna be shooting a follow-up episode here, because I'd like to have a whole episode around the nutritional science, you know, the health science that I believe a lot of our, you know, entrepreneurship mainly base can really benefit from. I think us doing a deep dive more or less into optimizing one's life so that they're able to have maximum efficiency and effectiveness, whether it's in the workplace for someone else, or it's, you know, you're a solopreneur bootstrapping the thing, or kind of just pursuing a new venture. You know, I know for me, the impact that doing certain things has enabled me to do, and the effect that it's had on my productivity and ability to focus.
Yeah.
You know, health and wellness is where I started out entirely.
You got it, man. I can see it. You're very vivacious.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, creative. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's great to be talking with you.
Yes,
So
sir.
let's dive. Yeah, let's go.
All right.
All right, on.
All right. So I think what we'll look to do is, if you'd be willing, I'd love to ask you right on here if you'd be willing to come in for another episode and do a full on deep dive into kind of some of those things. I'll jot down, and for our audience out there, if you want to, you know, comment some questions that you may have that you want to ask on this video or on any of our content, let's go ahead and send those in, and we can propose those questions to you right on that episode. If that's all right with you?
Yeah, that's great.
I think it'd be cool to engage the audience.
For sure.
Maybe even do a live stream. We'll figure it out as we go. But overall, Zach, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
It's
great getting to know you.
Back at you,
And
man.
I'm sure there's a lot more good conversations to come.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you all on the next episode.